Yo guys, what's up, man? So again, we are continuing our hot series. Obviously, our first episode was, of course, focusing on Chelsea, the Chelsea hot, with, of course, my main man Ford and Danny T. So thankful for the response that you guys had with it. So for this Liverpool, what I just thought, this is a long time user. He's been on the Hangouts for years now. So again, you guys know him very well, and I pretty much wanted to pick him because I know him very well based on the Hangouts, and I know that he will be able to get down to a very intense discussion and a good back and forth for Liverpool. So Dahir, welcome aboard. Welcome aboard.
Thanks for having me. HH.
No problem, no problem. So let's just start off first before we get into the much more of like a mid-season review of a general talk. Let's just talk about the game in particular. So let me just first start by saying, do you put any blame towards anyone for Liverpool conceding those three goals, or was it a case of like it is what it was, or do you think that those three goals could have really been avoided?
Yes, first of all, I think, to be honest with you, some of the goals were avoidable, but at the same time, before the game, I had this feeling that we were not going to keep a clean sheet, largely down to the defensive issues that we had. Obviously, Trent was out. We were playing Fabinho as a centre-back for the last two games. He was back to his midfield role today, but I think maybe other than the third goal, which Alisson could have done a lot better, I don't think I can really blame the goals that Palace scored. I think maybe the second goal...
But looking at that first goal, again, amazing play by Palace. Do you think that the press was a bit too over-eager? And a bit
yeah. That's what I thought at the time when the goal was conceded. It's sort of, Palace just managed to beat our press for that first goal. And Milner, for me, James Milner was always going to struggle against Zaha, sure, to be honest with you. Yeah, because Zaha is such a skillful player, very unpredictable. And once he cut to the outside and cut that ball back to Townsend, I thought, yep, it's 1-0 to Palace. And that's what it proved to be. But like you said, it was mostly down to the press. We pressed a little bit too eagerly, and then one pass can eliminate two or three plays in an instant.
So let me now go to the Milner points you brought upon, and that links into Klein. Why was Klein allowed to go? Because again, and this is what I even tweeted as, I think if Klein was in that position, maybe he stops Zaha from getting the cross in. Maybe he does a better defensive job than because Klein is a natural right back. Milner, that's like a secondary, tertiary position. So do you think Liverpool were ill-advised to allow Klein to go? Or
Yeah, I have to say it was a strange decision, loaning Klein, especially considering the fact that he's proved to be reliable, for a few seasons. Obviously, he's lost his place to Alexander-Arnold, but letting him out on loan in January, I don't think was the best idea. Even though we have cover, the likes of Fabinho and Milner can cover there, but they're not traditional right backs per se. They're not, and I think it was probably down to Klein himself. Maybe he decided that he needed to play more games, because I can't imagine Klopp letting go of an experienced sort of 27-year-old right back who's been at the club for a few seasons. I think we've only played him once in the league, which was against Manchester United. And I didn't think he did too badly in that game, but sort of letting him out on loan now with the injuries, I did think at the time it's something that could affect us, but we also have Joe Gomez who can play at right back, although he's more of a centre back, but we should be fine in that area, even though it was a strange decision to loan him out.
So apart from Palace scoring the goal, just let's look at like what Liverpool did so well. And I think again, what I even said in my post-match was, I was just amazed by the reaction. Liverpool were always able to react, and they always had the answers to the questions that they posed. And this sort of like is a bit of a segue into the second talking point that I want to talk upon. So how impressed were you by how well Liverpool were able to attack and how much pressure they were able to put on what was a very defensive Palace side?
I was very, very impressed because, first of all, looking at the system, I did think we were going to continue with the 4-2-3-1, which had Salah up front, but we went more with a 4-3-3 today. Naby Keita started the game. And from the first minute, you can just tell we put that Palace, defense under siege, and they were defending in numbers in the 18-yard box. When they took the lead, it was still the same. We were continuing to push, for an equalizer.
But the intensity went way higher in the second half, way higher.
Yeah, the intensity a lot higher in the second half. And I think it was the same against Brighton as well. But to a much bigger degree in this game, it was more evident. Like the second half, obviously, I have to say, with some of the goals were quite lucky. I have to admit, the Salah goal for the equalizer, it took basically Van Dijk took the shot, it took a deflection, and then it just bobbled to Salah. He scored, and the third goal as well, which was a massive error by Speroni. So some of the goals were a bit lucky, but the intensity was a lot better in the second half. And Palace hardly, apart from their goals, hardly had an opportunity.
So this leads into the next, pretty much like the first real hot topic for this whole Liverpool hot thing. And this is the change in approach. So when I was looking at that thing and how Liverpool attacked, I was like, my gosh, yeah, this is what Liverpool did last season. This is what Klopp used to do for Dortmund when he was there back at Dortmund. So there are two sides of the whole thing. Obviously, for Klopp, he has gone for a much more conservative approach where it's much about containment, and it has yielded better results. One of the best starts that Liverpool have had to a season. Yeah. Amazing clean sheets and so forth. But if Liverpool played like this against Man City at the Etihad, they may win the game. So, in your viewpoint, again, obviously, you probably would agree that, okay, look, we topped up the league, 4 points ahead, so obviously it works. But personally for you, do you prefer this approach, or do you prefer the much more attacking gung-ho approach of last season?
You know what? For me, it's quite an obvious one. I have to say, obviously, now that we're top, we have to say this approach is the one I prefer. However, obviously, going back to the City game, I would have preferred a much more sort of attacking side, because City were vulnerable defensively at the time. But it has worked quite well throughout the season, because
it's worked.
What this approach does is that we're not really focusing on pressing from minute one, especially against teams who can hurt us as well on the break, or, just generally dominate the midfield. But the only Achilles heel to that is if we get the midfield balance wrong. So, for example, if it's been already documented that the Henderson, Wijnaldum and Milner midfield pairing is really our worst in terms of, it's just too workmanlike, if you know what I mean. No creativity there, no control.
Because we're going to touch upon the midfield trio later on. But just focus on just the tactical.
Oh, the tactical, definitely. I think us not playing, fully attacking, fully gung-ho has benefited us hugely in the league anyway. You can tell from the results. We've also now become a bit more clinical. We're not really wasting too many chances per se. And I think this is part of Klopp's strategy. This is part of the reason why we are more solid defensively as well. We're willing to surrender possession sometimes if it means, playing more effectively on the break, playing more effectively, in the first few. I think the Man City game was a good example. The first game when we drew 0-0 at Anfield, we weren't really. They were cautious. We were cautious. It was that sort of game where neither side wanted to lose. And last season, I think we would have gone for it from the start, and we would have risked everything, and maybe come out unstuck.
But let me throw a curveball in there. What if you're in a situation right now, away from home, a goal down, 2-3 minutes later, before you can react, 2 goals down? How are you then able to react and really get on the front foot to now come back from 2-0 down and switch to that attack? Whereas if you're on the front foot, most likely you're going to be 1 goal, 2 goals up. Because again, because it is risky when obviously the results have come, but now as you're going deeper and deeper into the season, should you still be a case of let's just keep it going? Because you could come to a situation where you're 2-0 down in 6-7 minutes. So before you can react, you're already 2-0 in 6-7 minutes. And the players themselves, the players themselves will want to be so eager to get back into the game, they will leave space in behind. So that defensive approach may have a dark side to it if you run into a team that just puts you 2 down. So then is that an argument to Klopp should really chop and change within, saying, maybe for this game, let's start off from start being very attacking and more pressing?
Oh, yeah. I totally understand what you're saying from that point of view. But to be fair, in the league, it's quite difficult to say because we've not really been in that situation where we've been 2 goals down, straight away. Obviously, we've had that in the Champions League against PSG, against Red Star Belgrade, and then you saw the team were, going for it, more attacking. But I think in the second half of the season, what you are going to see most likely is Liverpool sort of going back to what they did last season, particularly against the top six teams. I think if by the time we play Spurs again or Chelsea or United, it's going to be the same. It's going to be conservative because they have the quality to hurt us. But maybe against the lesser sides, I think we're going to go more attacking, especially at home, because Liverpool normally play on the front foot at home. Away from home, I have noticed at times, we've had a few difficult games, Leicester away, Palace away, etc., where we've had a nice sort of 20-30 minute spell where we play freely on the attack. And then once we're like maybe 1 or 2 goals up, the difference is quite staggering from last season. We would go for more goals and leave ourselves open. Whereas this season, we're a bit more tight, I think Joe Gomez has made a massive difference, and Fabinho as well, because having that shield in front of the defense helps hugely now, because we're not really having to play Henderson an awful lot in that holding role. And we all know he's not really that good technically speaking.
So basically, you have confidence that this approach that is obviously much more contained will pretty much see you is most likely to give you the title than maybe trying to switch it up and try and ask for more energy.
Oh yeah, 100%. I think obviously if our key players don't get injured, obviously it will depend on Van Dijk and Salah staying fit, especially until the end of the season, because those two, I would say, are our most important players. Sadio Mane as well, obviously, Robertson. You can name quite a few, which is really, really good at the moment. But I think even if we change our approach, as long as we do it in the right games, if you like. So if we're doing it against the relegation teams, the relegation fighting teams, that maybe then we can still win either way. But if we're doing it against a top 6 team, sort of like a Chelsea or a Spurs, that's where we have to be careful. Because so far it has worked. If we are defensive against those teams, maybe the worst case scenario is we get a draw, and then Man City could drop points, or we could either keep our position, or we could either sort of extend our lead in that respect.
So I mean, let me even bring in to Klopp now. I didn't have any, but I think this links him to Klopp. See, my criticism of Klopp always was, again, like one of my most favorite teams to watch of all time was Klopp's Dortmund. I thought that they played amazing.
Yeah, me too. Yeah.
So, but as good as they were, I was like, Klopp doesn't have a plan B. Like he just plays one away and that's it. So coming even before this new season, I was like, okay, Liverpool, they're just going to do the whole same thing, attack, but they've got obviously a very good defender in Van Dijk in there.
Yeah.
So were you surprised that Klopp had this plan B in him? Because let's be real, not many managers have a plan B. Like apart from, let's say, a Ferguson, like whether you want to talk about Guardiola and Allegri, Simeone, most managers just have their key plan. But so were you surprised that Klopp was able to go from his ultra gegenpress attack to this much more contained, much more mature approach? Did it so surprise you, or you thought that you always had it in it?
You know what? To be fair, to an extent, it really did surprise me, because Klopp is a manager who prioritizes attacking football. With his gegenpress, the way he likes his teams to play is more attacking. So, to an extent, it was a surprise. But Klopp also realizes now that Liverpool, if we want to win a trophy this season, then the defense is key. I mean, if you want to win titles, if you want to win trophies, then you have to have a good foundation at the back. And for me, the 3 signings that we made, the likes of Van Dijk, Alisson, Fabinho, those were the signs where you thought, is Klopp trying to change his approach? Maybe is he prioritizing that defensive solidity? I mean, obviously it's not to say that we're not going to attack the same way, but he now realizes that having a defensive base is key. I mean, for example, Pep Guardiola in his first season at City, they were very vulnerable. I mean, people immediately expected Pep to win the title. They didn't. They had a disappointing season, and he's gone on to sign the likes of Walker, Mendy. I mean,
Laporte.
Even last season they said Laporte, and you could see the difference it makes. I mean, City are an amazing team, but even they were struggling defensively. And once Pep Guardiola made those signings, addressed those issues, you can see now the effects, and I think Van Dijk has had a similar effect in our
yeah,
rear guard.
that's a great
Mm.
segue. That's a great segue.
Yeah.
Van Dijk. Now, for me, I
Mm.
always thought like defenders don't get enough credit. And I remember Bart Simpson, aka Lam, said that
Yeah, Philip Lahm, the legendary Lahm.
you
Yeah.
know, legend for me, best right back of all time.
Yeah.
He said that
Oh yeah, I probably agree with that.
but he said like the Ballon d'Or voting is very biased towards attacking players. As in, it is so focused towards attacking players that defensive players almost have no chance of even getting a look in.
Yeah.
And I cannot remember the last time I saw a defender affect a team the way that Van Dijk has. Like literally, like he has just transformed this entire team just by his defensive play, like the reading of his game, his command, his leadership, and so forth.
Yeah.
So, just from a Liverpool fan's point of view, what is it specifically? What is it specifically attributes skill-wise that Van Dijk does that Lovren and Matip and so forth, and these guys just couldn't be able to do specifically this season?
Specifically, I think there's quite a lot of specifics when it comes to the difference between Van Dijk and our centre backs. First of all, when we signed him for that 75 million fee, I don't think anyone thought that he would make the impact he has made.
Oh no way, no way!
Like, nobody
was crazy.
Yeah, but obviously the difference is that not only is he a commander, is he a leader at the back, but his ball playing qualities also are of another level compared to Lovren, compared to all of our other centre backs as well. Gomez, etc. He's quite comfortable passing from the back. I mean, he can switch play. I mean, he does tend to go diagonal sometimes, whether it's to Alexander-Arnold, whether it's to Robertson. And I think the key difference is that he has brought solidity and understanding. So no matter which centre-back pairing he is with, whether it's a Lovren, whether it's a Gomez, whether it's Alisson in goal, etc., there seems to be that base. He's sort of become now the most important player in our team, arguably, as a result of this. And you could even see last season, the stats speak for themselves in a sense. I mean, obviously, I don't really look at stats that much. I mean, they are important, but you could see when he has arrived, we're not conceding as many goals. We're conceding less goals at Anfield. And also, the key thing as well is like
he's also coaching the other defenders as well.
Yeah, he's definitely coach. You could definitely see. I mean, even though he's not the club captain, you can see that he is the actual leader of that team, and it's not Henderson. It's definitely Van Dijk in terms of, getting the team shape together, if you like. If someone else is the other week basically Arnold was pushing forward way too high. It was Van Dijk that told him, get back in position as soon as possible. So he's not only brought defensive quality, but he's also brought a leadership. And the one other thing I need to highlight is that he is also quite quick. I mean, he's deceptively quick. So he does sort of make the right angles. He's not like the quickest centre back, but
he's not Varane, who's I think is like the quickest.
Yeah, definitely, yeah. But he has brought that solidity, defensive solidity, whether it's on the right side of centre back or on the left side of centre back, and it's made a massive difference right now. And you could argue, do Liverpool reach the Champions League final last season without Van Dijk? I mean, it's hard to tell. I know our front three were great, but you also need that world-class defender who's able to glue everything together.
But then again, this links into my tactical approach points, because the thing about it is that, for instance, Godin is great in a defensive system. In an attacking system, Godin would be exposed. In an attacking system, Chiellini would be exposed. But Van Dijk is similar to Ramos and Varane, where even if the team is very attacking, I think that because of his speed and his reading of the game and his mobility, he would still be able to cope in an attacking system. So I think...
You know what? I totally agree with that, because he's more of the Varane Ramos mold in terms of, the mobility and whatnot. Whereas Godin and Ramos, as they are obviously great defenders. I mean,
very old school, more old school.
Very more old school, sort of like in a defensive system. They will obviously not take any risks. They will defend for their lives. They also have the sort of the IQ of timing a tackle to perfection. Something you can't say about a few defenders as well. So yeah.
No, because I was like, if you're a defender in an attacking system, the most valuable attribute you have is your reading of the game. Because
Yeah,
because a lot of what you have to do is intercepting.
that's
Because
true.
you don't want to
Having
be
that awareness, yeah, for
because
sure.
you don't want to last ditch tackles when you're facing a counter attack. You want to be able to stop the counter of the opposing team before it
Yeah.
occurs. So
And I also want to add on Van Dijk. He has also made a difference to the national team. Holland now
he's
Holland
hmm,
now you can see they're a more rejuvenated team. Obviously, he's not the only one who's the reason for it, but he's a fundamental part. I mean, Koeman
but
has
he's
made
the
him
leader.
the
I mean, basically,
captain as
as you
well.
said, it's like
Yeah,
even if he doesn't
yeah,
have with the captain's armband for Liverpool, you can tell
yep,
that he really is a spiritual leader of the Liverpool team, and he's
without
definitely the
question.
leader of
Yeah,
the Dutch team as well.
definitely. Yeah, and you could see the difference he's made for club and country. I mean, obviously, the only thing missing now is obviously adding silverware and being recognized for that amazing season that he's having so far. But
Hmm.
other than that, it's going perfectly, and you can see the difference.
All right, Salah now. Look, I know because look
Yeah,
again. I mean, maybe by the time this gets released, maybe my
yeah,
apology video would have been released.
yeah. I imagine, yeah, it
So
will.
let's see. I can only be honest. Again, I don't. For me, I don't hold any grudges against anybody. And as crazy
Of
as it
course,
may
especially
sound,
not especially not a fellow African, of course.
no, hell no. But and especially, I don't hold any grudges against
Yeah,
Cristiano. Hold, but as you
yeah,
said,
yeah,
from somebody from the continent as well, I hold no grudges
yeah,
whatsoever. No way. But
yeah.
my honest assessment, I saw him for Fiorentina. I saw him for Roma. And
Mm,
even last season, I was like, wow, that's an amazing last season. I just don't think that because I look at a totality of everything. Like
yeah,
when you look at Messi, there was always an upward spiral. Cristiano Neymar, there was an upward spiral. But it was too big a jump from what he did at Fiorentina and Roma to what he did last season for Liverpool. So I felt that,
huge,
yeah,
huge jump. Yeah,
he'll still be good, but I don't think he'll be to the same standard of what he did last season. Look, man, I mean, I'll admit I was wrong because he
yeah,
has improved. And I think that the key thing is that you have to understand that he was playing under pressure because you have the pressure of Egypt. Because I work for like a news channel and we have all these screens in our
definitely.
office. And on CNN, he was doing like a special on CNN. And I was like, no, man, this guy's spotlight is growing very huge. So the amount of pressure that he has and the massive target on his back because of him breaking the goal scoring record and so forth was huge. So to have
Absolutely
all of
huge.
that
Yeah,
and to still deliver, look, it's amazing. So now be honest with me, be fully honest with me.
I will be. Yeah.
Did you after last season, do you really feel like if Salah was the real deal, that no, this really guy is really that kind of guy, or even you're surprised that he's been able to still keep up his high level this season? Honestly speaking.
You know what? Honestly speaking, after that amazing season he had last season, the first thing that came to my mind is if he can even do maybe if he can even score 25 plus, 30 plus, that would represent a good season. But to be fair, the beginning of the season, I didn't really expect Salah to, it's really difficult. But despite the slow start now, you can see he's playing with more confidence. He's also evolved as a player, if you like.
Oh no.
Where
I mean, just very. I think I'll just that's a key point that I even want you to expand upon. Like
yeah,
because again, for me, I don't because obviously we're obviously of like a similar kind of age. So I grew up in the
yeah,
90s. And when I say to people in the 90s, especially to my younger subscribers, we
yeah,
didn't have the internet back then. So when I watched football in Nigeria, we didn't have the internet, we didn't have whoscored.com. So all I relied on
yeah.
was the eye test.
Those fundamentals, yeah,
Yeah, so when I look at Salah, I'm looking at specifically what numbers don't show you. So how he evades trouble, how he gets out of tight spaces, how he finds openings, how he finds space, and
yeah. How he uses his body as well to sort
yeah.
of shield the ball. I think
So
his
so
dribbling
so
has
so,
improved
so,
quite a lot. Yeah,
so speak upon specifically the ways in which he's improved as a footballer this season.
I think obviously the ways he's improved was sort of evident from last season. So all these attributes that he's displaying now, he was displaying last season in terms of dribbling past opponents, holding the ball up, using his body, etc. I don't think he was doing that quite a lot at Roma and Fiorentina because he was more in a fluid system where he was the right-sided winger. So he was more reliant on his pace, on his finishing. Whereas now, I think he's become a little bit more technical, like in the way he manipulates the ball, sort of the way he rides challenges, the way he uses his body to shield it, as I said earlier. And I think what is evident now as well is that this system, under this manager, under this system, it suits him quite a lot. And you could even see, like, in December, like when we changed to a 4-2-3-1, how well he's playing as a lone striker now. That's what he's starting to do now. So he's starting to adapt as a lone striker, where we basically play Firmino as the number 10 and Salah as the front man. So he's now even starting to become more attackingly flexible, the same way Mane has been throughout his career, but obviously Salah to a lesser extent. But you can see his qualities in front of goal, either on the flank. And also the one thing is he's also, very, very hard working. He does track back and whatnot. And you can see that's the difference between Salah now. Yeah, he was quite a raw at Chelsea as well. But you could see at Basel, you could see the early signs in his career, like when he was very good in front of goal. He was more of the type of player that was running in behind and finishing off chances, exploiting space. Where right now he's still the same in terms of that, but I think he's added a bit more the technical aspect to it now, where he's dribbling past players. He's even finding some nice passes here and there.
I think
he's becoming more and more well-rounded, but obviously there's still a way to go.
Link-up play.
Yeah, the link-up play is definitely more evident now in his play. And the good thing is we can use him in quite a lot of systems now, whether it's on the right side of a 4-3-3 or as a lone striker, maybe him and Firmino up front in a 4-2 in a 4-4-2 system. I think that's the underlining thing. Whereas a few seasons ago at Roma or Fiorentina, he was only playing in the same system, sort of in the same position.
Oh, no, and I think basically, the key thing, if you're a manager, the key thing what you want from players, especially your biggest players, is adaptability.
Yeah.
And
even I just want to speak. Yeah, I just want to speak from the mental side of it as well. Sorry to cut you off, HH. The mental side of it. So at the beginning of the season, obviously, he was struggling, sort of, to score goals, to score, to perform, if you like, in big games. And there was criticism. Could he replicate what he did last season? Could he even at least have a respectable season? And from my point of view, I was obviously worried when he wasn't scoring as much early on in the season. But to be fair, I wasn't worried about the goals per se. I was just worried about the performance, I think from November onwards, that's when it started to improve, because the change in system sort of does that to a player. Even if he's an amazing player as he is, you still need to tweak things as a manager to make sure you get the best out of him. And now you can see he's playing with more confidence, similar to last season. Obviously, he won't score. I don't think he'll get to the tally that he got to last season, 44 goals, which is extraordinary. But there's no reason to deny him.
I think the thing, though, is that even if he doesn't reach the goal tally that he does last season, I think he's actually playing better this season than he did last season. I think last season was about great finishing. I think as of right now, you're just seeing, as you said, he's actually improved as a player. And by him improving as a player and becoming smarter, he can be the lone striker, he can be the number 10, much more restricted, or he can be played out wide. Yeah. And that's adaptability.
That is very true. And that's an underrated aspect as well of his game, because obviously many people look at goals, but at the end of the day, it's also about him evolving as a player, adapting to different systems. And maybe this is why he's not struggling as much this season, because now he's scoring goals. He's also creating goals as well. And, it's largely down to the system, obviously, but it's also down to Salah as a player. He's an amazing player. And I think right now, obviously, take nothing away from Eden Hazard. Hazard, talent-wise, is the best player in the league. But obviously, on current form, in terms of best, it would probably have to be Salah right now.
Oh, no. And even, again, I was even going to bring up that point. I think in a vacuum, Hazard will always be the better player. But I think what Salah has over Hazard now is that I think he's better on form. And I think that Salah can be used in more positions than I think Hazard can. I think Hazard really, his strongest thing is attacking that. But I think with Salah, I think This guy can be left, he can be right. I think he can be even number 10. He can be the lone striker. Like Salah can definitely be a lone striker in the system.
Yeah, it's also sort of like down to the team dynamics as well, obviously.
Oh no, for sure. Because again, who knows? Maybe if Hazard was in Liverpool, it would be different. But I think for Salah, because what Salah has is that he has the attacking instinct and he's got the footballing ability. So he had the attacking instinct last season, but now he has the footballing ability. So let's just transition into Sadio Mane. So let me just start off first with this.
Sadio.
What is Mane's strongest position?
Okay, I think I have to say, obviously, from watching him earlier, like, I think I started watching him first when he was at, obviously, I saw a few clips when he was at Salzburg. But when I really started watching Mane was when he was at Southampton. His strongest position, I think, is as a left winger, a left forward, where he likes to cut in with his right foot, sometimes create chances, jinx his way past players. I would say that's his strongest position. But you can see also for the national team, for Senegal, he plays more as an 8/10, where he's just behind the striker.
I need you to tell me what is his strongest position. If you were the manager right now and they say, no, this is the position where you will get the best of Mane, no excuses, which will it be?
I have to say where he's playing right now on the left flank. I can explain why as well. I think it's because not just down to his qualities, the way he's so unorthodox in his movement, with and without the ball. But the one underrated aspect about Sadio Mane, the one thing that I think is, I wouldn't say it's undervalued, but I think it's certainly overlooked when he's not scoring goals or when he's not assisting goals, is that the way in which he covers, the way in which he tracks Robertson, because Robertson attacks quite a lot from on the left side. And the amount of covering he does on the left side, even today against Crystal Palace, there were a few situations where he was in our own penalty area, clearing the ball, making tackles, tracking. And I think that's one of the main reasons why playing on the left side is more beneficial to him and to the team, because defensively he's contributing. Nothing is really, being taken away from the attacking sense as well when he has the ball. And I have to say that is right now his best position, even though he can play on the right side. I mean, when he did join Liverpool in his first season, he was playing on the right side literally throughout the whole season. But it seems as though he's a lot better on the left side.
Oh no, but it's the thing with Mane. Again, I agree with you. I think again, another guy can play many positions, but I just think out wide left, that's his strongest position. And the thing with Mane is that I've always said that even if it's maybe even closer now, I would still say only just, and this is just personal preference.
Oh, yeah.
I would still say that Mane is the better player, only just, but Salah is closing that gap. That's just a personal preference.
Oh, yeah, that's absolutely fine, yeah, because you can see Sadio Mane's qualities are different from Salah's.
And very different. So, but my thing is that I just think that's what Mane needs to work upon the most is his decision-making.
Absolutely, yeah.
If he makes better decisions, this guy can be even in the upper echelon of a tier 2 player. Because I just think that there are moments where did you have to dribble there? You should have made the pass even earlier. You should have thought earlier about that move. And there are just times when he loses the ball when he shouldn't really have to lose the ball. So do you think that that's an aspect that he can improve on? Because trust me, because this is why I always say in my football analysis that decision making is the most undervalued aspect of football. Because everyone is talented.
You can tell from sort of like when you're on the football pitch, I'm sure we've both played football. So we can tell being on the pitch, making that right decision, that split second to pass the ball.
With the speed of the game as well.
Yeah, with the speed of the game as well. But I have to say, with the decision making, it's 50-50. Sometimes he does get it right, sometimes he does get it wrong. But the one thing I feel like he can improve maybe is his finishing. Sometimes in crucial moments in games where we're 1-0 up. The Napoli game was a good example where he had loads of chances to finish the game. I mean, you can argue maybe it wasn't his night that time and he didn't really play well. But if Napoli scored, then all of a sudden Mane is painted as this villain. So maybe from that point of view, maybe he can improve his finishing and his decision making. But besides that, I think he's top notch in what he does.
So let's move there now to the midfield trio. And I think this is a thing of where for Liverpool, It's always been a case of like this person plays here, this person plays, this person plays here. So, in your own opinion, let's say everyone is fit. Everyone is 100% fit. The entire squad. What is the strongest midfield three for Liverpool? Everybody fully fit.
Okay, personally speaking, so does it also depend on the formation? So should I go with 3 midfielders or 2?
Three midfielders.
Okay, 3 midfielders. Based off what I saw last season from Oxlade-Chamberlain, I have to say if he's fit, then I believe for now anyway, our best midfield 3 would be Fabinho as the anchor man, Gini Wijnaldum, and Oxlade-Chamberlain. So those 3 specifically at the moment. Although I must add a little caveat there. Naby Keita, for me, if he does settle in, if he does get more game rhythm, game time, for me, quality-wise, Naby Keita is our best midfield player. However, obviously, you asked the question right now, which midfield pairing would be the best right now, as in what I've seen, the systems. I think if Oxlade-Chamberlain is fit, he would be a starter now.
Okay, so wait, let's take Oxlade-Chamberlain out and let's just look at this season specifically, where Chamberlain most likely will not play in this season at all. So we're now dealing with the rest of this season.
All right.
Everyone is fit. Who's in that 3 then?
Fabinho, Wijnaldum, and Keita. Simply because you
not
have
Shaqiri?
That midfield. Shaqiri, I think in a midfield 3, Klopp hasn't really used him much in a midfield 3. Whenever Shaqiri has played, we've played a 4-2-3-1, so a double and then Shaqiri on the right. So I think Shaqiri in a midfield 3, we can use him, but it does take away a lot of his qualities because he's more of an attacker. He's more of a number 10 stroke wide player. But if everyone's fit, I think our best midfield 3 would be Fabinho, Wijnaldum, and Keita.
So with Keita, again, I fully agree with you because, again, like for Naby Keita, I feel like footballing-wise, he's one of the best naturally gifted football players at Liverpool.
For sure, yeah. He has struggled this season, yeah.
Oh, no, basically, once he fits in, I think this guy's going to be dynamite. So why do you think specifically he hasn't fit in? Is it a case of just time, the system itself, the time that he was brought in? So why do you think that he has a guy this talented has not been able just to fit into this team like that?
You know what? I think it's a combination of all of those things you mentioned. And last season, obviously, Keita knew for about a year that he was going to be a Liverpool player. But just before preseason began, obviously Klopp was asked the question about Keita and Fabinho, and he did say that Keita would settle in more quicker than Fabinho. Mainly because the way Leipzig played was a bit similar to the way Liverpool played in terms of off the ball pressing, And I obviously, under the assumption of what Klopp said, assumed straight away that Naby Keita would settle in quickly based off the style of play, and it's quite easily forgotten that in the first few games he was really good. He obviously didn't score, he didn't set up any goals, but he was quite standout in those first few games, in the first 3 or 4 games. And then the minute he was sort of left out of the team, and he had his injury problems as well. I think he had 2 separate injuries which kept him out for a longer period. Once he came back, you could just tell the rhythm was not the same anymore, and he does display his qualities here and there. You can see it in glimpses, but it's obviously not the same Naby Keita we saw for Leipzig. But I think next season will be an important one for him because this season is just sort of mainly adapting. Obviously, it's a disappointing, way to adapt because he is an amazing player. He should be hitting the ground running. There was one point in time where Fabinho was struggling more than him, but obviously now Fabinho is more well tuned into the team. He's played a lot. But
but you know what? But you know what I think though. Just sorry to question, but I think the thing about it is with Fabinho, I think if the role that Fabinho plays, I think it's easier to fit in. Obviously, still have to, but it's not in his ability to once you just figure out his role. I think it's easier to fit that in. I think the thing with Naby Keita, what his role is more complex and more demanding.
Because he's obviously
No, because again, he's required to bring the ball up and to do through balls, forward passes, and make those incisive passes. And it's most likely that he will lose the ball and do everything like that. So I do think that it's a case of where he's so talented and he's so good, it's not a case of where you shouldn't change your entire system to fit him in, but I think more can be done to try and get the front three to try and connect with him. So maybe it's a case of like where you're in training, it's you train with a four where you have Keita, Salah, Mane, and Fabinho just training as a four against a defense. So they have an understanding of the run. So Keita understands the runs that they make and how they move. So understands the kind of passes to make without even thinking.
Yeah, I think with Keita, obviously, the performances will come. I mean, as long as he's in the team regularly, and especially in the system that he played in a 4-3-3, where he's the advanced midfielder, where he's more responsible for sort of finding those key passes, dribbling past opponents, just that little bit of magic in between the lines that he can create. Obviously, he's a different player to Coutinho, who we sold last January, but Keita is more sort of better in tight spaces, the way he dribbles, but I think we will see more of his quality next season rather than this season, because he's still trying to adapt to the team. And the one reason why he hasn't made as many appearances this season, it's not because he's been poor per se. I think it's because Gini Wijnaldum has been, amazing this season in terms of the way our ball retention. You could see against Crystal Palace, it was a bit more chaotic. Whereas if Wijnaldum plays that game, we have a bit more control, if you like. And I think he's probably the most underrated player in our team.
That's the key thing, because for Wijnaldum, is great for midfield solidity, but he doesn't give you the kind of attacking creativity that Naby Keita gives you. But at the same time, the front three create their own goals themselves. So then it's like, if that front three can do the creation, because Salah can create, Mane can create, Fabinho creates a lot, then it's like, okay, why do we need a Keita then if the front three can create? Let's just focus on solidity a lot more, which makes it harder for Naby Keita to then have an argument of being in the team. Because
the one thing I'd like to see tried, I think, by Klopp is maybe play Fabinho and Keita together in a midfield too. Sort of, instead of a three, sort of experiment and see what would best suit Naby Keita. So I think if we go with a Fabinho Keita combination, and with Shaqiri, Firmino, Mane, and Salah, maybe that could work.
Okay. So a 4-2-3-1.
4-2-3-1. But either system, I think, will get the best out of him, as long as he's settling in. As long as he's confident in his ability and playing regularly. I just think it depends on that more than anything.
All right. So Henderson now.
Yeah.
Let's start with this. Does Henderson deserve the hate and the criticism that he receives?
No, I don't think he deserves that. I think he is better than what most people think he is. However, the perception with Henderson is that sometimes people expect him to perform well. Like, I mean, we all know he has his limitations.
But he's the captain. He's the captain, so you have to expect it.
That doesn't necessarily mean he should be one of our best players. I mean, he did play well against Palace, but he does, obviously, there's an underlining quality between him and some of the other midfielders that we have. I mean, he's never really been that good in a holding role in terms of, having the awareness, the technical ability to control a game. But he does his fair share of, work. He does control the games that he's supposed to be controlling, Obviously, in the big games, it's a problem, playing him alongside Milner.
That's where I wanted to go to. Yeah. Do you trust Henderson in a big, massive game in that midfield?
You know what? Strangely speaking, I have to say yes, but it really depends on the combination. So if we go with the Milner, Wijnaldum, Henderson, then definitely not, as it's been proven this season. But to an extent, he can perform but that's more down to the team being in sync together, rather than Henderson's own ability as a player.
So what is your assessment as for Henderson as a player? Because for me, I do think that there is some talent in there within him, but I just feel that when the going gets tough, I do feel that you need a high level of quality, and I think you must look at, again, Naby Keita. I feel like what Henderson should be doing is what I think Naby Keita could potentially do, and what Naby Keita was doing for Leipzig, where
very true.
You're making those, I think with Henderson, it's like you're making those crossfield passes, but you're carrying the ball, and you're really that midfield. You're that midfielder breaking from midfield, really adding quality to the front three. So
Yeah, I
Henderson
think the
maybe
thing is with
football. Okay, sorry, go.
oh yeah, the thing is with Henderson, he didn't start out as a deep. He was more of a number eight, a box to box player. I mean,
Mm,
he played that role in his first few seasons under Rodgers, so where he was sort of darting into the box, but he was a bit raw back then. At Sunderland, he was a right-sided player, but he was never a winger. He was always a midfielder, but you can see that he's a decent midfielder. I wouldn't, take that away from him. But with Henderson, the criticism has always been maybe we can get a better midfielder rather
mm,
than Henderson being a completely, poor player per se. But I think ever since Klopp has arrived, you can see the improvement in his game because he hasn't really played in that deeper role as much. So the 16-17 season was the one where I thought, yeah, maybe there is a good player in him that we can use either as a starter sometimes or as a squad player. But this season, you can see that he's more mature in his football, the way he's thinking, the way he's passing the ball. Obviously, he's limited in big games. We can see that, but I don't think he does anything to knock the team's ability or quality down in the lesser games per se.
Okay, so final thing now. So looking ahead of the season now, we can pretty much assume that City will beat Huddersfield. So it's
Yes,
a
yes,
4 point
yes.
lead. So
I think they will. Yeah,
so the
unfortunately.
so the trophies available: Champions League, Premier League. Those are the two trophies potentially
Yeah,
available right now.
yeah,
So as of right now, and we'll probably revisit this when we do another one of these like in a few
yeah.
weeks time. But as of right
Hopefully,
now,
hopefully it ends well.
yeah. But as of right now, which
Yeah.
come May, what trophies do you really believe that Liverpool will have in their cabinets come the end of
You know, so as you would put it, your way, just a yes or no, or can
just a
I
yes or
sort
no?
of?
Just a yes or no.
All right. Okay. You put me on the spot here. So,
So no, because remember you can not change,
um,
but just say so in your gut
yeah,
feeling right now, how the team is playing,
yeah.
just your feeling. Champions League,
All right. Yeah.
Premier League. How many of those trophies do you take?
Just the Premier League. I think that's the main elephant in the room, and it
Mm,
has been the entire season. With the way we're playing, the way things are going right now. Even as good as we are, we obviously deserve to be top of the league. But there's also these little signs, these little elements. The winner against Everton in the dying seconds. Some of the goals that we got against Palace. The deflection and whatnot.
mm.
There's always a few signs in a moment. The Sturridge equalized that against Chelsea. Sorry to point that out, but yeah, the thing is, there's always signs where you think, could that be the moment? Could that be the moment? And Shaqiri coming off the bench, scoring twice against Manchester United when it was 1-1. So I
And,
have to
and,
say,
and also just to even add in, like
yeah,
I think I already made mention of this before. This is a
yeah,
far more responsible team than the Suarez team.
oh,
Like
100%,
that Suarez Rogers
100%.
team was a one man army.
Yeah,
Pretty
it was just far too loose. I mean, we were great going forward that season, but always susceptible defensively.
So, yeah, so that's why this is much more balanced. And the key thing is it's winning big and winning small. And even there is a strong feeling that maybe this could be Liverpool's year, that this could really be the year. But
Yeah, there's
do you
definitely a
feel that
strong sense of that. Yeah.
but do you feel that the players can deal with the pressure?
You know what? I think they can deal with it. Definitely. They've shown it so far that they can deal with it. And even in the Champions League, like obviously that's a different competition, but the pressure that we were under to beat Napoli, because that was a season defining game.
No.
Because
But here, let's be
yeah,
real now. Let's be
yeah,
fully real now.
yeah,
I feel the Champions League is the bigger competition, and that is still the biggest club competition.
absolutely.
But
Yeah.
the fact that Liverpool have won the Champions League in recent memory, they've never won
Yeah.
the Premier League as it's been called the Premier League before, and there is a
Very
hunger
true.
and
Yeah.
a desire to
29
win it.
years to be precise. Yeah. I wasn't
So
even alive when
yeah,
they
yeah.
last
So
won
so
the
so
Premier
basically,
League.
so
Yeah.
do you feel that these players who have never experienced winning a Premier League before, do you think that they can actually handle the pressure of being chased constantly by Man City, who do have the experience of winning it? Can they
You know
deal with
what?
the pressure?
I have to say yes, they can handle it because I think Klopp has drilled that into them the entire season now, where he's obviously mentioned that to the press that this is a different team. We are here to create our own future, sort of our own history, if you
Mm,
like. And And I think the players understand that as well. They understand that they are living in their moment. They're just enjoying the ride at the moment. And I think it has no real effect on them at the moment. Obviously, that can change, but as it's going right now, I don't think it's going to change too much.
Okay, so let's say I want you to put you in Klopp's shoes right now.
Yep.
What kind of message do you tell the players? Because you touched upon it just now. So let's just get into the whole psychology of a manager in this situation right now.
Yep.
Do you remind the players that you can really do it, everything really matters? Or do you tell them to ignore the pressure and just play their game in and of itself? What is the right mental approach?
You know what? The way I would approach it would be the second option. So I would basically tell them, just approach it game at a time. We do have this in our own hands. Let's not look into, the past, whereas, other teams have not quite gone over the line. The past Liverpool sides, under Benitez, Rodgers, where they haven't quite made it. But what I would say, if I was in Klopp's shoes, is that to the group of players is that, why not? You are more than capable of winning the league, but don't let that be a distraction for now. Just continue the way you're continuing. You also have to think about the fact that we're not really playing Man City anymore. We've already played them twice. So we just have to make sure that, we put ourselves in a position where we are, on the cusp of winning the title. So we are at the moment.
So you wouldn't want the players to even think about, man, every game matters. You could really win it. You just want them just to ignore the facts of...
Oh, no, not entirely ignore it, but I would say more so block out the pressure, the pressure that comes with it. But sometimes that is difficult, Sometimes that is difficult, but it just depends, It depends, because before the game, I would obviously... The pre-match talk would be, we know how important this is. There's an opportunity to put pressure, on City by extending the lead, even temporarily. And if the score, depending on the score line, and then I think the players do understand how big this is for the club, for the city, they really do understand, they get it. But there's a difference between getting it and there's a difference between coping with the pressure. And I think so far we're ticking both boxes, but it can always change. But I think I've never been more confident in a Liverpool team winning a league than this, in terms of like everything adding up, like the manager, the players, the vibe, but it is Man City. So we know one little mistake and they could...
No, like there can be, because I do get it when, and I think you've mentioned this before, City will drop points 100%, but like hopefully, if I am Klopp, I have to you see it is difficult to see which approach to take, because I do get the approach of like forget about the pressure, focus on everything and so forth. But as you say, and as I've seen, these guys look like if they've got big balls. And because they look like if they've got really big balls, I'm like, I think these guys can, to an extent, handle the pressure.
You know what will reveal it completely? Yeah, I think the one thing that will reveal it is if we're in this situation with maybe 5-6 games left. That's when it starts to crank up. That's when the pressure really, not that it's not there already, but it just intensifies just that little bit more. Like if we have maybe 5-6 games to go and we still have a 4-point lead or a 5-point lead, that's when it starts to get towards them. But at the same time, I don't think it's going to affect them a huge deal because of, like we spoke about earlier, the style of play, us being a bit more defensively sound in that aspect. So it also depends on whether we're in the Champions League by that stage. But if we're not, I think we can focus on these Premier League games, week in, week out, and hope that Manchester City have, by that point, sort of lost belief. But I don't think they will. They are champions for a reason.
Yeah. No. Again, I just think Liverpool should do it in this level. So, look, man, it's been a swell having you on this whole Liverpool construction. Look, it's going to be an amazing title race. So, and even if I'm still sticking with Man City, because I said that at the beginning of the season, bro, anything can happen, man. And again, when we do this again, hope maybe Liverpool can be able to be in that strong position, man. But it's been swell having you.
Yeah, hopefully.
Thanks for your time.
Thank you very much. Peace out.
All right, peace. Okay.